We'll go over our winners and losers from the first week of NFL free agency so far. So, Kevin, what do you got for your winners and your losers as far as teams go in NFL free agency so far?
So I'm gonna go last to first. I'm gonna say the losers of free agency, in my personal opinion, are definitely gonna be Jacksonville Jaguars and the Baltimore Ravens. Jacksonville has had the most cap space, and they have basically signed absolutely no one outside of Marvin Jones and Carlos Hyde. They lost Ngakoue, obviously, last season in a trade, and they got basically nothing in return. And the Ravens, they're still missing a star wide receiver, and they lost Ngakoue. They lost Judon. That pass rush is not going to be the same. They're looking to lose that tackle that they had. Was it Orlando Brown?
I believe so.
He's on the trading block, so Lamar Jackson's blind side is going to be up. They lost Mark Ingram. Baltimore just does not seem to be in line to make a push at any point right this season. I know that they are bringing in Sammy Watkins for a workout or a meeting tomorrow. So, maybe, but what is Sammy Watkins really going to do when he's played a total of 24 games in 3 seasons? So I can't really say much because the Colts are bringing him in for an interview on Wednesday. I hope it's a ploy to bring TY in, kind of like hey, if you don't want to sign with us, we're going to bring Sammy in for a workout. But yeah, those two are definitely the biggest losers to me. I would definitely say the biggest winners, in my opinion. I have three teams. I have obviously the Tampa Bay defending champion Buccaneers, pretty much bringing back everybody on that Super Bowl winning roster, aside from Ndamukong Suh and
Antonio Brown.
And Antonio Brown, obviously. And then we have the New England Patriots right behind them, basically breaking the entire bank. They had a Brinks truck come in single-handedly and hand out money basically to everybody. And then I would say the New York Giants. They addressed the playmaking need of getting a number one wide receiver, and they got the best one in this free agency class in Kenny Golladay. They got Adoree Jackson to help solidify that secondary. And then they retained Leonard Williams and gave him the extension that he rightfully deserved after his play the last 2 seasons. So, winners and losers, it's really hard to tell. If I have to give my personal opinion on a real winner, I really think that that's going to be my dark horse, which is the LA Rams. They didn't necessarily bring in a whole lot of people. They didn't have a lot of cap space, but as an organization, to go with the record of last season, 11-5, with the play of Jared Goff, and you elevate and basically swap the quarterback play and put in Matthew Stafford, I think it's absolutely incredible. Every single player on that roster that isn't Aaron Donald restructured their contract to make sure that they could pay Stafford and that they can uplift and create some form of cap room. Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, Robert Woods, you name it, that entire offense with Cooper Kupp and the rest of those boys, we're looking at an 11-5 team with Jared Goff, and you plug in Matt Stafford instead.
Mm-hmm.
The NFC West, we don't know what's going to happen. We know Jimmy Garoppolo is okay at best, but will he lead them to another Super Bowl? Probably not. Russell's got his own problems in Seattle. That offensive line, they're probably my third loser because they have done absolutely nothing to address the biggest problem in the room. They didn't address the elephant in the room. Russell said, I need an offensive lineman. You had plenty of guards available, and they didn't get not one of them. So Seattle, we don't know what's going to happen there. And then obviously Arizona, we know what Kyler Murray can do when he's at the top of his game, but will we get the Kyler of the first 8 games, or will we get the Kyler of the latter of the second tier of the season in the final 8 games? They got AJ Green, they got JJ Watt, they kept Larry Fitzgerald. So offensively, they look good, but they did lose Pat Peterson on the opposite side. So we don't know. But I really do think the LA Rams were a really, really big winner that people aren't talking about, man. Matt Stafford's going to light it up. And I think that they're poised for a Super Bowl run if Tampa Bay slips up at any point in the season.
And if you're talking about the Rams here, the Rams are in probably the most competitive division in the entire NFL right now. So you add somebody like Matt Stafford to the mix with a team offensively that's pretty solid. Their wide receiving core with Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, you got Tyler Higbee at the tight end spot, and then Cam Akers in the backfield. You plug in Matt Stafford, that offense is going to be humming pretty much for the most part next year, alongside with that defense, with the pass rush of Aaron Donald. It's going to be a tough team to go up against with LA next year. But I'm going to go in the reverse of what Kevin did. So I'm going to start with my winners, and then I'll hit on my losers for free agency. In no specific order, I'm not saying like this team did the best. I'm just saying these are my 3 winners. I've got the Bucs first. The Bucs re-signed the major pieces to the team that they needed to. Shaq Barrett was the premier pass rusher in the entire free agency class this year. They not only signed him back to Tampa. They got him on a 4-year deal. Probably, I believe he signed a $72 million deal. So he got the money that he was looking for. He gets the job security that he was pursuing. And he gets to stay with a championship contending team with Tampa. Not only that, they franchise tag Chris Godwin, so he'll stay for another year. They re-signed Gronkowski and Levante David. So adding and keeping those 4 pieces there in that Bucks solid core of players, that's going to be massive for them to get back to the Super Bowl next year. We'll see what happens with Antonio Brown and Ndamukong Suh. If they come back on the cheap, I think it even bolsters Tampa's case to be the favorite coming out of the NFC next year. But we'll see how those moves materialize in the next couple of days or weeks or so. The second team that I have, you mentioned the New England Patriots. The Patriots definitely by far went out there and made big splashes just with the amount of players that they signed. I believe they signed almost close to like 10 free agents just in the first week of this free agency period. They completely revamped their defense. When you look at their linebacking core, just that specific part of the defense, you can make a case that the top 6 guys at that linebacking core are all starters if they were to be on a different team next year. So they get, not only that, they get their COVID opt-outs back from last year, which include Dante Hightower. You pair that with the free agent signings that they had, they're going to be solid on the defensive side of the ball. And they got a solid pass rusher and Matt Judon. That's going to be amazing for them. And that's one thing I'm going to be looking forward to next year is New England's pass rush, because they've got some solid pieces on the defensive line to work with. And not only that, they did get some weapons for Cam. So having Aguilar, having Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, which having Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, the top 2 tight ends in this free agency class, it's crazy that they were able to sign not only 1, but 2 of those guys at the top of the position at the tight end group. So having those 2 guys, I think Cam is going to be in a much better position to perform better than he did this past season with just the limited receivers and weapons to throw to. So I definitely have the Patriots as one of my winners. And then my third team for the winners is Washington. I thought they added some solid pieces throughout this free agency period. They added William Jackson III. He's a solid cornerback. Came from Cincinnati. He signed like a 3-year deal for about $40 million. He replaces Ronald Darby. I believe Darby went to Denver. So it does add a solid defensive presence in that secondary, and I think he'll do wonders for Washington moving forward. They also added Curtis Samuel. He'll be paired up with Terry McLaurin. Those guys were former Ohio State teammates. And I think having those 2 guys as your top 2 wideouts to throw to, it's going to be solid for whoever throws it to him, whether it's Ryan Fitzpatrick, who was also signed this offseason, and Taylor Heineke was also signed before free agency. But whether it's Heineke being the quarterback or Fitzpatrick being the quarterback, they're definitely going to have some decent options to throw to as we go into next season. So those are my 3 teams for the winners in free agency. And then I only have 2 losers here. The first team that I'll go over is Seattle. You mentioned that they didn't make a lot of moves, and they saw some pieces leave. I don't know if you mentioned, but Shaquille Griffin being moved.
He left.
Yep. So.
Oh, he signed with Jacksonville, right? I think he went to the Jags.
Yeah, he signed with.
So they did one thing. They still losers though.
Yeah. So the one thing when you look at Seattle right now is, look, Russell is definitely frustrated with the direction of this team, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he's had to carry this team on his back, really without a lot of help the past few seasons. And when you look at some of the moves that have been made this offseason, Seattle has not made really the right decisions as far as going after some possible free agents. I mentioned last week that they could have gone after Joe Thuney to kind of bolster that offensive line to help Russ out a little bit. He ends up going to the Chiefs. Like I mentioned, Shaquille Griffin on the defensive side of the ball, he goes to Jacksonville. So when you look at Seattle, Seattle's defense took a hit. Seattle's offensive line didn't get any better. Now their skill positions on the offensive side of the ball is still pretty intact, but they did lose Carlos Hyde, and Chris Carson could be on the way.
Chris Carson signed a 2-year, $14 million deal.
Who did he sign with?
The Seahawks.
Oh, he's re-signed?
Yeah.
Okay. So I take that
2-year, 14.5.
Okay. So, but with that said, though, this team, I think, is going to be in in a kind of a similar position that they were in last year. I think they're going to be reliant too much on Russ, and I think the frustrations are going to continue. And then the second team that I have for losers is Chicago, simply because of the fact you signed Andy Dalton to be your quarterback for next year. If that
Correction, 3 years, 24.6. My apologies.
For Chris Carson?
Yes.
And then with the Bears, it's Andy Dalton. You signed Andy Dalton to be your starting quarterback for next season. If that doesn't scream, we've already given up for next year, I don't know what does.
The red rifle. Okay,
yeah.
Kyle. He's disgusting.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. His play is disgusting. I don't want to see him on the field unless he starts dropping dimes to whoever it's going to be. And I don't even know if Allen Robinson's going to be on this team because
he signed it.
We'll see how long. He's going to be frustrated though. He's going to be frustrated.
I'm Allen Robinson. I say trade me now.
Man,
I say trade me now.
Yeah, it's gonna be very tough sledding for Chicago next year. And like I said, when you sign Andy Dalton to be your starting quarterback, I don't want to say it's over, but it's just from a general manager perspective. It looks like you're already throwing in the towel.